Thank you, Kim and Jerry. And now a gift of music.
Silver bells, it's Christmas time in the city. Ring-a-ling, hear them sing. Soon it will be Christmas Day. City sidewalks, busy sidewalks, dressed in holiday style. In the air there's a feeling of Christmas. Children laughing, people passing, meeting smile after smile. And on every street corner you'll see silver bells, silver bells. It's Christmas time in the city. Ring-a-ling, hear them sing. Soon it will be Christmas Day. String of street lights, even stoplights, blink of bright and green and red. And the shoppers all rush home with their treasures. Hear the snow crunch, see the kids bunch, then the Santa's big scene. And above all this bustle, you'll hear silver bells, silver bells. It's Christmas time in the city. Ring-a-ling, hear them sing. And soon it will be Christmas Day. Soon it will be Christmas Day. Soon it will be Christmas Day.
Thank you, Stan. And now we have the story for all ages, which Lillian McAvoy is going to share with us today as the children join us. If anyone who's young at heart wants to come forward and join them in the story, you're welcome to do so too.
Hi. What are you doing? I'll sit with you guys. This is A Baby Was Born by Gwen Matthews. Once upon a time, a baby was born. Even before that baby was born, there were people waiting and wishing and hoping for that baby. The people who were waiting and wishing and hoping for that baby didn't know exactly what the baby would be like. And so they wondered, would the baby have a smile so warm that it could melt the coldest snow and ice? Would the baby have a voice so strong that it could shake the very mountains? Would the baby be so courageous that all would be comforted even during the most ferocious storms? Would the baby show the world so much love and that peace would settle into even the most hardened hearts? But even as they asked these questions, as they imagined what the baby might be like, the people who were waiting and wishing and hoping for that baby already believed that the baby would indeed have a warm smile, a strong voice, a courageous spirit, and a loving heart. And they weren't wrong. When Jesus was born, his tiny body was wrapped up to keep out of the cold. He was laid down on straw in a trough that was used to feed the animals, inside of a barn. His young parents, proud and exhausted, had been forced to take a long journey, far from home. Jesus' parents were two of the people who had been waiting and wishing and hoping for him to be born, but there were people who had been waiting and wishing and hoping for Jesus to come. These people saw hurt and suffering in the world, and they believed that this new baby, Jesus, could use his voice to spread a message of love and peace, and they knew it would take courage for him to do so. But Jesus wasn't the only baby that people have waited and wished and hoped for. People also waited and wished and hoped for you. Yes, you. Once upon a time, you were born. But even before you were born, there were people waiting and wishing and hoping for you. But those people who were waiting and wishing and hoping for you didn't know exactly what you would be like. And so they wondered, would you be kind? Would you be brave? Would you show love? Would you spread peace and joy? I think you do. But even as they asked these questions, as the people who were waiting and wishing and hoping for you imagined what you might be like, what kind of person you might grow up to be, they already believed that you would be kind and brave and loving, and that you would spread peace and joy in our world. They knew that you could help ease the suffering and hurt in the world, and that you would speak out against violence and oppression. And they weren't wrong.
Right. Every one of our babies is precious. Thank you, Lily. We come to the time in our service for joy and centering. Reaching out with joys and concerns helps to draw people closer together in our community. I'll begin with one item that was submitted in advance, and I've got one here from the sanctuary. Those joining us online, you can enter in the chat any joy or concern that you'd like to have lifted up here as well. Let's see, Harriet Major has some happy news to share, as well as Sandy and Jamie Major. Harriet's the grandmother, and Sandy and Jamie the parents of Susanna Major, who is delighted to announce the marriage of Susanna to Sean Williams on Saturday, December 4th, near Muir Woods, California. So a wonderful wedding in the family. And a joy from Terry Lynn, who is here today. I see the doctor in reference to my neck. She's had a what do you call that? Not a cast, a brace on her neck for a while, and hope the x-ray shows that the fracture is healed or healing. So good wishes for Terry as she finds out what's going on with her neck. Oh, and Jamie Major has put in the comments that Susanna's wedding was magical, a wonderful time for the family. And that looks like our last joy or concern this morning. Ooh. Here comes one more. Kai and Tila share, we are happy to report that Zachary's COVID shot affected him minimally. So lots of folks getting COVID shots, and happy to not suffer, and sometimes happy to suffer if that means the immune system is kicking in. Lynn Thompson says, nice to see Ron and Ann Knapp on the video. Hello out there to the Knapps. And let's see. Mark Leskatoff shares concern for public school staff members and students struggling with understaffing, as was reported in the paper today. Thank you for sharing joys and concerns, which lets folks reach out and support one another and help us all feel connected as a community. I want to enter now a time of contemplation. You may want to check your posture, close your eyes, maybe take a few deep breaths as we begin. I'll offer a common prayer, inviting your participation in a bit as you are moved. Spirit of life abundant, today as we acknowledge the centrality of birth and death to human life, we are keenly aware that the pandemic has limited the ways that we can connect around these key passages. For safety's sake, we have been curtailed in our ability to meet new babies, to celebrate weddings, and to share the mourning of those who have died. Over these past 20-some months, some have had to wait so long to meet new babies born in our families, if we have been able to hold them yet. Weddings may have been postponed or kept small, with couples sometimes making and remaking plans as options change. Loved ones have also died. We may have had to wait months to celebrate their lives, or attend a memorial service online, or share it only with a small circle, if we could mark it formally. The honoring of our beloved dead has been made harder, and the process of grieving sometimes lonelier. Yet the need to celebrate life and to lament loss is no less with us. Spirit of love that knows no limits, witness also the frustration and loss many feel upon facing a second holiday season complicated by safety concerns. Travel to see loved ones is once again fraught. And this when the holidays can already be an especially poignant time of year. Alongside the joy in these present moments, we may recall fond memories of past celebrations with our loved ones. As we carry on traditions, we may especially miss any dear ones we have lost to death, distance, or dementia. Or we may be more sharply aware of an estrangement. Love, joy, and wonder may bubble up unbidden in this season, but so too may sorrow, loneliness, or regret. Let us be witnesses to one another as well. I'll invite those gathered here, if you are so moved, to say aloud the names of those who are on your hearts now, or if you're online, you may choose to write them in the chat. We'll start with babies, and then we'll do weddings, and then naming deaths. So what new grandbabies, nieces and nephews, do you celebrate and perhaps long to meet in person? You may share their names now, aloud, or in the chat. In our congregation, the new babies have included Catherine Seguin, Amelia Copeland, twins Meredith and Eleanor Eamon, and there are many others among our family and friends networks. What couples that you care about have been married during this time, whether or not you could be there? You may name them now. These names include church member Peter Solfest and his sweetheart, Danny, married last spring. What friends and family members have you grieved, whether or not you were able to attend a service to remember them? You may write or say their name now. Among the members and friends of this congregation, some of those names are Ron Witham, Mara Winter, Jim Rogers, Bill Huntington, Evelyn Whitehill, Virginia Shoemate, and Steve Rabine. And so a great cloud of witnesses has honored these passages and named the special people who were a part of them. Spirit of renewal that transcends down generations, be with us in our celebration and our grief as we continue into a time of silent remembrance or prayer. Blessed be. Amen. Every week, we take up an offering in support of our liberal religious values. One half of the loose currency in the offering plate is donated to a different cause each month, one with a local presence, which advances UU principles. In December, we are supporting Youth Emergency Services, YES. YES serves homeless and at-risk youth by providing critically needed resources that empower them to become self-sufficient. There are different ways to give. Those online will see a link in the chat if you'd like to donate directly to YES. Those here in the sanctuary, you can come forward during the music and place some cash in the basket, or if you have a pledge check, you can put that in there too. We also have boxes at either door if you prefer to place a gift in one of those collection boxes as you're coming and going. Thank you for your generosity as we share this gift of music. Has my sound been okay for you today through the mask? Okay. Our COVID safety task force has advised that with our numbers as high as they are, everyone who comes forward to speak or sing is going to keep their mask on. And since I just got a negative test back from my kiddo yesterday, I feel extra aware of protecting you all. Bright snow falling and glinting through a black sky as it did Friday night. Christmas lights sparkling with multicolored cheer when dark falls at 5 p.m. The candles on the Advent wreath, the Hanukkah menorah, the bonfire for Yule, flaming like joy through this hushed and still time of year. The coming of winter reminds me that light can shine all the brighter in the darkest times, and that joy so often rides right alongside hardship. Poet William Blake wrote that joy and woe are woven fine, inseparable parts of life. I believe death and life are woven fine too. Stephen Jenkinson, a chaplain to the dying and their families, puts it this way: the last breath is there in the first. The last breath is there in the first. But day in and day out, most people in our era are not in touch with this reality, that birth and death, joy and woe are so intertwined. In a culture like ours that runs from hardship and regards death as the enemy, going through the world, I think, is thus a little harder than maybe it needs to be. Have you noticed, though, that children are less apt to avoid the subject of death? They have a natural curiosity about how the event of death and the condition of mortality fit into life. Likewise, children often experience life more directly than we grown-ups, who have internalized so many ideas and expectations from our culture. Children are closer to just raw experience. A few years ago, my child went through a period when, on multiple occasions, usually while snuggling at bedtime, she told me something like this: "Mommy, thank you for giving me life. I'm glad to be here with people I love and who love me. I have a good life. Thank you and Daddy for having me. Thank you for giving me life." Later, I asked my daughter what brought this on. Had there been some conversation in her religious education classroom or in a book at school about the blessing of life? No, there had not. It was simply a child's natural, unprompted upwelling of gratitude for being alive. I don't think it's a coincidence that children can approach both death and life with heartfelt honesty. Kids often have direct access equally to sorrow and to delight, how they can move so quickly from one emotion to another as it comes upon them. Because they do not try to deny death or pretend away loss, they can more easily experience the joy that life offers. I want that for myself too, and I want that for all of you. Ross Gay writes, "I dreamed a few years back that I was in a supermarket, checking out when I had the stark and luminous and devastating realization, in a clear way, not that oh yeah way, that my life would end. I wept in the supermarket line," he says, "watching people go by with their carts, watching the cashier move items over the scanner, feeling such an absolute love for this life. And the mundane fact of buying groceries with other people whom I do not know, like all the banalities, would be no more so soon or now." Have you ever had one of those moments when something ordinary, like a grocery store or a tree in your backyard or a meal with family suddenly struck you as exquisite and precious because you knew that the moment and that you would not last forever. The last breath is there in the first. Birth and death, sorrow and joy are opposite faces of the same reality. One might expect to react very differently to birth and death, just viscerally. There's nothing like the touch of a warm baby with soft skin and supple, exploring limbs. Nothing like that new baby smell. Nothing like that little gurgling and cooing noises that babies make, or the gentle rhythm of their breathing when they sleep, or the instinctive way a baby will grip your finger and peer into your eyes as if you contain the universe. I'm seized with the knowledge that a baby is a miracle. It might seem that someone who recently died could not appear any more different, the opposite of the baby in every way, from cold, pallid skin to utter stillness, silence, and the absence of spiritual spark or ability to connect with the onlooker. When a baby is placed in my arms, I feel more alive, more in touch with the flow of life. But curiously, I also feel this way when I visit someone in hospice care or when I encounter a dead creature. I remember on a walk once coming across a bird laying still on its side next to the trail. I stopped and stared at it in wonder. I had the impulse to reach out with tenderness and caress its feathered body, although the germophobia I have absorbed checked that impulse. I felt a deep sorrow for the dead bird that I would not feel for the new baby at the other end of the life cycle. But the upwelling of tenderness and the experience of kinship with another life and a wonderment at my own being alive here, beholding this scene amidst a great throng of green and brown life and death in the forest, it was all very much like the awe and gratitude that accompanies contact with new life. Joy and woe, woven fine. One is inseparable from the other. Death can throw life into relief, reminding you that you are part of this endless loop of death and birth, growth and decay. As Stephen Jenkinson observes, that realization can bring unbidden waves of gratitude and a sense of indebtedness that we somehow get to be here, get to hold the baby, get to hear the bird song, see it flit through the trees, feel the rain or the snow on our faces, slice the apple and taste its sweet tang and feel its crunch. We get to mark the turning seasons and mourn our dead, and someday be mourned. We get to be here. We get to have life. After I have been reminded of the impermanence of life, the change inherent in all things, I continue on down the trail, grateful for the unmoving bird and having encountered it, appreciating with heightened sensitivity all the details of the ever-changing scene of life and death in which I am immersed. I see the dead cells that make up the hard wood of the liveliest tree, the shiny sap seeping out of its bark, the brown pine cones holding the seeds of new life. I witness the fallen needles and other decayed matter that makes up the soil that nourishes all the life around. I remember the atoms of stardust in my very body. I feel connected to ancestors I never knew, who knew the same joy and woe of life as a sentient mortal being. In his book, Facing Death, Avril Stedford tells the story of a woman who was diagnosed with a terminal illness. He writes, Mrs. N was a very particular housewife who felt she should clean her home every day. She did not entertain often, for it was such an effort. Everything had to be homemade and to a high standard. When she realized she might only have a few more months to live, she thought things out and altered her ways. On sunny mornings, she would go out in the garden straight after breakfast, making the most of the good weather while she could, however dusty her house might be. Before, she had entertained her grandchildren once a week to a meticulously prepared spread. Now, Stedford observes, after the diagnosis, she wanted to see as much of her grandchildren as possible, and they came 3 times a week, ate store-bought cakes, and everyone enjoyed themselves immensely, for she had become more relaxed, more interested in them, and less in her own performance as a hostess and grandmother. The knowledge that she was dying gave Mrs. N a new freedom to be fully present in each moment and enjoy her life and her relationships. You or I may have many more years to go than Mrs. N did at that time. I hope we do. But our diagnosis is essentially the same. Life is a terminal condition. In contrast, in our culture, which seeks heroically to stave off death, sometimes it is hard for people to face dying, even when it is right at hand. And I think there are some times when this is especially hard, when we would not expect death to be coming. I have mentioned Chaplain Stephen Jenkinson several times. He has come to be known as the angel of death because of the presence he offers for this life passage. In a documentary about Jenkinson, a young couple that he visits are shown struggling with their child's stark condition. Only a few years old, she's being kept alive despite her illness by modern technology. The chaplain talks with the parents about their child's status. It's clear they're not able to be present to the fact that their child is actually dying. They can't name this reality aloud or take it in. And I imagine I would be the same way in their place. Someone from outside the medical system, the angel of death, has to coax that recognition forward. The couple had felt that this knowledge was not okay to know. Their duty as parents was to fight for the implausible and hold out to the last. But through their conversation with Jenkinson, they come to feel that they have permission to accept that their child is dying, to let that in. The parents describe what a relief it is to give up on a medical miracle and take their daughter home to die in peace. Her life will no longer be artificially and painfully prolonged. They can say their goodbyes. They can properly grieve. Later in the documentary, Jenkinson tells the filmmaker, another person he has helped to grapple with death, what he believes death to be. Death, he says, is personal knowledge. Death is necessity. Death is justice. Death is a sign of mercy. Death is a sign of compassion stitched into the universe itself. And this knowledge of death is important for everyone, not only persons in so tragic a circumstance as parents witnessing the dying of their child. Jenkinson asked the viewer, how will you carry what knowing that you will die does to you all the time? How will you carry what knowing that you will die does to you all the time? Joy and woe, death and life are woven fine. This does not make grief easy. On the contrary, the deeper we love, the deeper grief will cut when we lose someone. How then do you offer comfort to someone who is grieving? I'm sometimes asked this question. Most importantly, I believe, by simply being with them. Listening if the grieving person wants to talk about their loved ones and their feelings, or for the dying person if they want to talk about their own life and memories and questions. You can offer comfort to the grieving, perhaps especially by honoring the invisible connections that the person had in life to their family and friends, connections that do not end with death. And by honoring the natural course of grief, however long it takes, all the ways it manifests, the way life will never be the same again for the survivors. You can let the grieving person see that whatever they are feeling, whatever they have to say, whatever they want to do with their grief, you as a companion and a friend can abide with them through it. That's what grief needs. What grief does not need is a magic cure. Megan Devine writes, "Grief no more needs a solution than love needs a solution. We cannot triumph over death or loss or grief. They are immovable elements of being alive. If we continue to come at them as though they are problems to be solved," she says, "we'll never get solace or comfort in our deepest pain." I believe that the death phobia of our dominant culture hurts not only the ability of many people to face death before it happens and as it is happening, but hurts also our ability to contact grief and let it work through us. And most other times and places, people can be real about death and real about the deep grief that is inevitable if one loves life and lives deeply and loves deeply. The climate crisis, which is on my mind in this strangely warm December we've had so far, the climate crisis and climate grief offer humankind a similar opportunity at the species level. If we can face the possibility of the death of our entire species, the possibility that humans may go extinct, as many other species now are, how much creative energy might it free up for a new vision to emerge of how we can live on this planet? The climate crisis offers the opportunity, if we choose to take it, to remember what a gift life is and to reassess how we will use this precious gift. Do we want to go on building empires and burning through the earth's finite resources and causing immense suffering? Or are we ready to move through this midlife crisis of our species and move into a stage of maturity, wisdom, restraint, and I suspect deeper and more frequent experiences of joy, too? How can we return to the essential perception of a child who understands what a gift life is, and that what really matters is our web of relationships? Joy and woe are woven fine, death and life braided delicately together. Here's the last thing that struck me about Stephen Jenkinson, the angel of death, was his close connection to nature. He observes that direct longing for connection to life opens up when you are in the place that you belong, the geographic place, the landscape. Of Scotch-Irish heritage himself, Jenkinson has close friends who are Indigenous and has learned from them something about living in close connection with the land. You see him oaring through the water in a handmade canoe. The canoe becomes a metaphor for the passages of birth and death. The boat is skeletal, the spine down the middle, a series of thick ribs that cross the spine and extend up the sides, and a skin of thin wood, all stitched together. The camera follows the canoe as it glides through the water, like an animal carrying the human spirits that are its passengers. When Jenkinson talks about his mother, he describes her as the canoe that brought him into the world. She has now died, setting off in her canoe, he says. She is now in the current, moving on without him. There's a peace in Jenkinson as he describes this. He clearly treasures the invisible thread that still connects him to his mother. He misses her, but he understands his place in the land that he belongs to, his place in the lineage of his family, his place in this grand existence that we are all privileged to be a part of. The grief that's for real, Jenkinson explains, comes from recognition of how life is and must be, that it requires death, because death feeds everything that lives. And that includes not just you, but the people you love and what you don't want to end. Life and death, woven fine. The chaplain says, I feel gratitude to the sun every morning for showing up again, and that I'm there to see it. In this winter season, as we face the reality of death, may each one of us know the gift of life for what it is. May we accept with gratitude the sun's return each morning. And as life presents us with moments of joy, love, and beauty, as it will continue to do, may we experience them fully, with minds and hearts wide open. So may it be. Amen. Let us honor the connections that bind us to loved ones in birth and death. Amid the sorrows and losses that life brings, let us also welcome each moment of joy that greets us. Praise cosmic temporality, each moment precious as can be. So may it be. Amen. I have a few announcements this morning. Next week, I hope you'll come back. We have a special service coming together. We'll be celebrating the warmth of the season in an all-ages service focused on the joy of giving. All ages will also help to put the service on, and Christina Strong still has skip parts to give out, so anyone of any age who's interested, let Christina know. And you can bring to this worship service donations as you're able for several groups. For youth emergency services, we're collecting warm clothing like gloves, hats, scarves, gifts for teens like earbuds or hair accessories, fast food gift cards. For Clare Memorial Food Pantry, we're collecting non-perishable food items as a part of that worship service. And lastly, for our own neighborhood care program, where we provide things as folks come to our door, we are collecting $10 gift cards for nearby grocery stores like Hy-Vee, as well as bus passes. So I hope you'll be here for that special service and partake in the joy of giving. Those who will attend online are welcome to bring those items to the church during the week. We're also planning a special Christmas Eve service with wonderful music on Christmas Eve, December 24th at 7 p.m., both online and in person. And I'm recruiting readers. The family and friends are welcome to join us for that. Lastly, a coffee hour outside is over for now as temperatures have fallen, but our youth group, YRUU, will be selling homemade cookies and holiday ornaments after church today in the garden next Sunday. And free will donations for those items will be given to youth emergency services. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, folks on Zoom, if you would like to stay on breakout, I will be starting those soon.